Ready for a Friday afternoon BTC update? Let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, as you all know, I like to do a normal Monday update after the weekly candle on Sunday closes, and on Fridays I do kind of like a weekly recap type deal. So let's head on over to the chart real quick. All right, so on the weekly chart here, this is pretty much what we got. Not too much going on, still pretty much going sideways on here. And let's go ahead and turn on Ichimoku real quick and see what Ichimoku has to say. So everyone's pretty bearish right now, saying that we're going to go down. We're going to go down. In general, I think that we are going to go down as well. However, that has not technically happened yet. So right now, we're kind of just sitting above this cloud. This cloud has acted as major support here. So I think that once this does break, and if we get a candle close below 1940, that's probably when we're going to see a major downside, into the $7,200 range that I've been calling for quite some time. So let's go ahead and take this off real quick and head over to the daily chart. Daily chart, just more sideways action. Let me go ahead and turn all of our drawings on. As I mentioned last time, I now believe that this is just a descending channel and not so much a descending wedge. And that pretty much looks about right to me, because this median line, look how many times that we've tested support and used it as support or tested it as resistance. The same thing happened here again, and now we're just kind of floating around between these two lines, which is our support and our resistance. This has been a very important range here that normally once we're in it, it's difficult for us to get out of it. However, it's also been difficult for us to break down out of it as well. So just lots of sideways momentum here. I'm still proposing that this is a major 1, followed by this is going to be a 2 or whatever down here. And right now we're in just a really long sideways 2 correction, which I'm proposing is a 333 correction inside of a larger WXY. I'm proposing that this was a ABC into a W, ABC into an X, and of course that would mean that we have another ABC down into a Y. This has not been invalidated yet. This one daily candle, yes, it is green. Does it, go back up past our B wave? No, it does not. Until that happens, this is still a valid count. So if this does get invalidated, and this is not in fact a last ABC correction, then I'm going to have to go back and redo my count and kind of just reevaluate what's going on here. Again, as usual, as you saw last time, we've got Binance booting off the US customers around the 12th, and then Bakkt goes live on the 23rd of September. So that's going to be coming up very shortly here. And of course, this red bar is our major zone of most immediate resistance here. So as that stands, let's go ahead and take a look at our 4-hour chart here. Right now, this is my count as it stands. I've got, this is a 5-wave sequence down into an A 3-wave sequence up into our B, and now a 5-wave sequence down into a C wave. We could have, just a 5 down to our median line here, and then have like a little 3-wave up, and then, down, because this is going to be part of a larger 5-wave sequence. So it really just depends what's going to end up happening here. Until this is another thing, until this gets invalidated too, I'm counting this as my wave 4. This wave 4, it is deeper than usual, and the 1 is extremely short. So this count might get invalidated if we push up just a little higher. So I've been watching this very closely here. This count does stand a pretty good chance on the smaller degree to get invalidated quite soon. So with that, as I drew last time, let me go ahead and just redraw it here real quick. As I drew last time, I was proposing that basically we have a larger cipher pattern. This is called a deep bullish crab. meaning that my target still would be around 7.2 down here, so that this number between X and D would be about 0.618, so that's about 7150 down here. This does line up, as I mentioned before, with our fib levels. Let me go ahead and redraw that real quick. So that would line up pretty much exactly with our 618 levels down here, which is basically where our main targets are usually for bigger corrections like this. As I mentioned in my last video as well, that would be a pretty shallow correction considering how much of a parabolic move that we had. Normally we correct to about 80%, which would be about the 5400 level, but famous last words, this time will be different. It actually will, though. We've got major institutional adoption this time. We've got a lot of big retail money coming into the markets. A lot more awareness has been spread about digital assets like Bitcoin and as well as others. So we're not going down towards 5K. It's not going to happen. 7.2K is definitely going to be the deepest we go, and this even stands a good chance of being invalidated. And what another group member in our Edge group mentioned to me today that he caught was that this could actually be a different pattern here. This is a bearish bat, meaning that we're going to come up for one more wave testing major resistance here. This normally is a very, very reliable pattern to trade. This is one of the most reliable patterns in harmonic trading. And basically, in terms of relationships here, you've got between your X and your D, this has to be 886. And that's what makes this pattern so reliable, is that if this number gets hit, you normally end up seeing a extremely sharp and fast reversal. Like most other patterns, they're about 70 to 80% accurate. You know, we could push right past this, for instance. We would already be breaking out of this downwards channel. In terms of Ichimoku, let me turn that on real quick. Sorry, it gets a little messy. In terms of Ichimoku, we would be breaking out of the cloud as well as out of the parallel channel. So plus we would be past this very, very strong resistance, which we've already tested once and gotten rejected from. So that would be a major, major bullish move. Does this stand a chance of playing out and then we could reverse from here? Yes, absolutely. And our targets for that would be here, just entering in the top of the channel, or potentially at that time just retesting the top of the channel at 618, about the 10.3 level. Normally after that, though, you end up getting a real deep target around the 127 or the 141. So that would be a good target zone down here between these two fibs. If this was to play out, we would see a very, very, very sharp increase in price. Probably like right now, like this, I guess, would be the start of it, and shoot up, retest our highs here, which would be this level here. Which lines up exactly with 886 of this. This would be resistance here. Let's make that red. We would line up exactly with this harmonic pattern target. And then if we never got a candle close above this level, which would be 11,975. So if we never got a candle close above that, we can wick up to that. But if we don't get a candle close above this level, then this would be confirmed bearish, and we would see a massive, very sharp move to the downside. Our first target would be here, and then we would probably end up moving down to at least the 127 area, which is 8,200. So this does have the potential to play out as well, just like my other harmonic pattern. However, this can also go on for quite some time. So with that being said, if you take a look at this, what's very interesting, and this happens very, very rarely in crypto, is that these two patterns and the way that these candlesticks are lining up with these two patterns line up exactly. In fact, they overlap each other, which is very, very interesting. You normally never see on larger time frames like this, especially on a volatile asset like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. You normally never see such an accurate measurement of two harmonic patterns on the same time frame that are practically inside of each other. We are at a very, very important time right now. And I think that next week or potentially over the weekend, if we see a lot of volume coming into Bitcoin, we will see a decision of, is this going to continue its move up and invalidate my count? Or, is this in fact a 333, long sideways correction here down into a 2 that's going to make this this first initial pattern play out? And with my other pattern here, this deep bullish crab, this can go between 2, which would be up here, right about here. So 8,000 basically. This can go anywhere from 8,000 all the way down to the 3.618, which I definitely don't think is going to happen. That's down here at like $6,200. But normally what you want to do is, normally this number between X and D, that ratio, you want it as close to 1618 as possible in order to validate the pattern. It's normally this very last measurement that will complete the actual pattern before you take the trade on the move. Normally that's the number that you really, really, really want to pay attention to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. The other numbers can be within, like a tenth or, a couple hundredths or whatever. But this number is really what matters here, the completion of the pattern. Because if this number invalidates, like if I get a wick, up here instead, and it's like way shorter, then obviously, like this pattern didn't play out. Chances are by then another wave here has formed and it's a different pattern that has formed or something like that. So on the 4 hour, you can go ahead and see that we're in a pretty decent area of volume here. And the reason why we had such a major pump is there was just a really, really good gap in volume here at this level between 10.2 and like, what is this? About 10,300 and 10,000. 200. So in this $100 range, we just didn't really have very much volume, and we shot up. Let's go ahead and take a look at our futures chart and see, does that have anything to do with any possible gaps that were here? There was a gap here previously, but this has definitely long since been filled with all of this price action that's been in here. But normally when you're stuck in a little area that was of price that was a previous gap, normally you bounce around in there and ping pong around for a little bit, right? So like we did that here, we're doing that here again. This is in the same range for this major gap that we had on the way up before. And now, like the same thing happened with this. We didn't really fill this gap yet. We just kind of like blew right past it. And same thing with this. There was a previous gap here, which means there was lower volume. So we blew right past it, and that was what ended up happening for this initial very sharp downside that had a lot to do with it. I'm not saying that that's the sole cause, but that definitely does have a lot to do with our price action, no matter what anybody says. Gaps in the futures chart, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity just in the futures, and that's going to increase with the backed exchange. So we stand to see a lot of those gaps not happen anymore because there's going to be more liquidity in the futures. Those gaps are going to start disappearing. The ones that aren't filled, that are in our price range, are going to end up getting filled. And in the future, if there are gaps, they're going to be a lot smaller. They're not going to be hundreds or thousands of dollars of price gap anymore, like there has been. Like this whole thing was a gap on the futures chart. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's between what, $10,400 and $11,000. That's a $600 gap. That's massive. It's going to be something like we see in stocks. It's going to be like a couple bucks, or since Bitcoin is worth more, it'll maybe be like, $50, $100, but it's certainly not going to be $500 or $1,000 anymore. Slowly over time, we will start seeing more volume and more liquidity into the futures markets, which is going to make those gaps and these price spikes disappear. And that was something that BTC mentioned in their original news post when they came out and said, hey, we're releasing on the 23rd. Most serious investors have not been investing into Bitcoin specifically because of its volatility. It has $1,000 price jumps in a day. That stands a chance to make you or lose you a shit ton of money. And that's why most institutional and rich people with deep retail pockets are not in the market, because it's too volatile. And bringing that kind of security and liquidity into the futures markets, where you're not seeing that much volatility when you're bringing stuff in like that to kind of, it helps stabilize the markets and you get a lot less volatility, which makes for a lot more interested investors at the end of the day. So I hope that this analysis was helpful. Let me go ahead and I'll switch to my camera only. We are going to be adding a lot of things to the Edge platform. We're very excited. We're making a lot of plans for a lot of things, and we'll make announcements about that later. I'm not at liberty to speak on that at the moment, but we definitely have a lot of things that are going on. So definitely pay attention to the markets. If you're in trades, definitely never trade without a stop loss. I say this every video, and I'll say it again. Always trade with a stop loss. And just like you ladder your entries, make sure that you ladder your stops as well. It helps to minimize loss, and in terms of take profit levels, it helps you maximize your gains, as well as when you ladder entries, it lowers your dollar cost average as well. So keep all of that in mind, and as usual, all of my links to all of my resources are down below. You can reach out to me on Discord. My Discord handle is down there, as well as my Medium channel, which I try to post at least one article a week to. So definitely make sure that you check that out, as well as my Twitter and my Patreon if you're into private education and you want to learn more privately from me. That link is down below as well, where you can find more information. Have a nice day and happy trading.